Okay, let's go. I played a game just now, and our team lost again, but that's fine. I looked at it, the probability that we'll end up last place, because we have 3 match points out of the total 12 that we could have gotten, is almost 0. It requires the team that's currently in last place and has like, I believe they have 1 draw and that's it. 1-4-4 game or 1-4-4 match and that's it. To not only beat but also demolish the first place team who has won every single match so far. So and then that only puts them equal to us, and we also then need to get like no points whatsoever. We need to lose like 7-1 or something awful. So I mean, not last, win, good enough. I'm happy. But yeah, I've got a game today. I think it went pretty well. So a while ago I said that I was going to play gambits, and I did, and it went pretty terribly, honestly. And or actually it felt pretty terrible. I think it's probably bad but salvageable at worst. I think every position was like I could probably salvage that to a draw, worst case. Well, maybe not. We'll see. Like, I mean, with perfect play. And yeah, what I think I'm going to do is, instead of playing these gambits as white, I should play these gambits as black and just get pressure as black, which is kind of hard to deal with. But yeah, let's play this gambit. I played a Smith Morra in this game. My opponent allowed me to play a Smith Morra and took, which is the first time in quite a while. Yeah, and I just take back. Honestly, I can't remember all that much about this position. What I thought to remember was that you just slowly develop. There's some C7 things at some time, but yeah, I think that's, I can't really remember all that well. So I just developed, and my opponent developed, and I developed, and preventing knight g4, by the way. And my opponent set up a dragon, and I set up, like, well, I played rook c1 here. But I think there's never anything here after bishop g7, and just there's, I looked at quite a bit, but I believe there's never anything here, because after the knight moves, let's say knight d5, which I assumed would have been the move, knight c6, and you just defend that, and I don't see it. Maybe I can take here. I thought in the game, I mentioned to my opponent that maybe this, maybe this is something. But like, that sacks a second pawn, and like you can go here even. Maybe not. Maybe that's bad. Maybe you just have to go here. Yeah, I wasn't certain, so I didn't do that. Knight b5 my opponent claimed, but like, same thing. Knight c6. Also, there is, in both of those cases, there's also queen a5 check, which is just a free tempo. You can just do that. There's nothing I can do about that. Bishop d2. Maybe bishop d2 here. Maybe this is bad. Okay. But yeah, just knight c6. I don't see it. So I didn't do that. I just developed. I just played f4 here. And gonna do that. But that's it doesn't actually work that way, unfortunately. f4 is probably still a good move though. Castle. Maybe here I should play bishop d4 or something. Just put the bishop here and not have to worry about knight g4 stuff. In this position I played knight f3 and like it's not really a thing, because I can just go to g1 and then kick it out later, and then worst case go and probably go back. And maybe instead of going back immediately I just play g4 and g5, not g6, g5. That was the point. However, after knight c6, this is again so this isn't a threat now, but I can't castle. So castle knight g4. I mean, I can do this, but I'm sad here, and this loses because it's just an exchange. And for a second I thought that this trapped the queen, but the bishop is just undefended. Other than that, it does trap the queen though, which is funny. But there's just nothing there, so I can't castle. So I played knight d4, and now I'm in basically what you could get without gambiting the pawn, without gambiting this pawn. So with the pawn here and the rook on a1, this is a position you can reach as white, in which implies that I made a mistake somewhere, probably. Don't know where exactly, but we'll see afterwards. Bishop d7, but honestly it's not. I mean, the pawn isn't worth everything. This rook is useful, and I don't really see the counterplay that black gets in a lot of variations. I play a castle here, because this is still defended again. Rook c8. So my opponent, it looks like, is just up a pawn. I think my position is better than just down a pawn though, because I have a lot more space, and I did gain a move at some point. I believe this rook is also kind of useful, so I assumed that I just play a normal Sicilian and we'll see at the end. I played f5 here and just started attacking. Right, I played f5. I think f5 is fine. It does allow knight e5, which is the move that happened, which is kind of a shame because it threatens two things, there and there. Well, this one it doesn't quite threaten, g4, but the only way to defend this really is to allow this, because if I move the knight which would defend it, I lose e4. If I play b3, well, I mean, I can play b3, but I'm not happy in that position because there's this monster bishop and this knight is kind of an issue. Like maybe knight c6 back is just a good move there, because you just take and then take, or maybe not take, but you know, stuff. Yeah, so, I mean, and the other move was the move that I played, which was queen b3. Defend here, allow this. Also counterplay here, which is unfortunately not relevant. I assumed that there was something there, but there just isn't. Because my opponent here, did I write that down properly? I did not. My opponent played knight g4, but both knights can go to g4. Pencil. Or a pen. It was this one. It is relevant which one went, but not that much, honestly. Knight e to g4. Why this is relevant is because this knight attacks e4, so I can't just play knight d5, because then I'd lose a pawn here. I definitely underestimated this move because I assumed in the game that I had bishop f4, or I assumed before this that I had bishop f4, or even bishop g5. But the issue isn't anything with the bishop. The issue is this, and that. That's the issue. And this is really bad for me. It's just like absolutely terrible. I can't even... maybe I can take like that. Because on knight f2 I... Yeah. Oh, and this, of course. Probably not like that. Probably like that. So... yeah... This was bad. I assumed that I had either of those. Fortunately, I didn't play them because then I'd lose. I did find the way to get out of this without losing a pawn, and actually my position turns out after. I mean, this is bad for me, of course, but after knight d5, knight d5, yeah. It's. I mean, it seems fine. It doesn't look that great, but I think it's okay. There are variations where I can get into c7 as well. This pawn still hangs. So I think my opponent... maybe this is still fine for me. My opponent saved this pawn by taking my bishop, and I have to take back with the queen because otherwise this knight hangs. But now I don't see it, honestly. So my entire position is based around the fact that basically tricks on e7, otherwise I'm just down a pawn. So I mean, there are two tricks kind of. If my opponent takes, I think I take with the knight, and this is enough compensation. And maybe this, I don't know. Or that if the bishop moves. So okay. So yeah, I don't really see what black does. My entire position is also based around the fact that e6 doesn't work, I think. If e6 works, I just lose. Because we trade off, I lose a pawn, or I'm down a pawn, and I think the bishops get in, and like my position is terrible. But I think e6 doesn't work. I think e6 is a bad move. Also e5 is a bad move for the same reason. But yeah, but if that's the case, then like what does black even do here? You can't take here, you can't move the queen because then this hangs. You could try rook e8 maybe, but maybe then f6. Maybe that's... no, that doesn't actually work. Rook e8 might be a move. Maybe queen... no. I think it's rook e8 or something, but like you can do whatever you want, and I also don't see it for white. I think this is probably... black is probably better, but it's kind of difficult to find a good plan if e6 doesn't work. Fortunately for me, e6 happened. Or at least I assumed that this was good for me. And it's not because I can take here or here. I can probably take here, by the way. It's not because I take. It's not because my knight has a good square, which it doesn't. I mean, I can go to there and blunder a piece. I can go here, I guess. That's also not good. It's because I have f6, and I've threatened this, and I've threatened this. You can trade here and I'd have to take, I believe, with the queen in that case. And then this is still a threat. Well, it's not as much of a threat. And the pawn is sufficiently defended, because I take with the queen. So let's look at that variation. But like, and then this is actually, this just wins a queen because the king has no squares, so you have to take, and then yeah. So you can't play that. You have to still take. And then I take here, of course. And then you can either take here or play rook or take here. Actually, you have to do one of these. And I think you can take here like that, and then we get to a position which is not unlike the game, but it could have happened in the game as well, I believe. So let's look at the game. E6, f6. My opponent didn't take. No, it wasn't actually close. Well, it's kind of close to the game, but that exact position couldn't happen in the game. Because my opponent quickly took, and I take here, and my opponent thinks that they win this pawn by playing rook e8, and this pawn then as well. But that turns out to be not as clear, or not as clearly true, I mean. Because I have rook takes c8 first. I believe bishop takes c8 is clearly the best move, which my opponent did do. You can also take with the queen. I think that's just strictly worse. And this doesn't work because I take the queen with check and then save my queen, or also just win enough material even if that didn't happen. So you have to take. And now I found the move queen f4, which I'm kind of proud of. And it needs to be f4 and not f3 or f2. f2 also kind of makes sense, but it needs to be f4. Because I'm pressuring here, threatening checkmate. If my opponent dares, they can maybe take the pawn. Let's take a look. I don't think this is possible, but I mean, it's actually, I think this is good enough to show that this isn't good, because materials equal here, and if you can't try to win the knight because then the rook hangs and my knight goes here on the next move. So I think that's a good enough reason to not be able to take. My opponent didn't take on g7, right? Queen f4, yeah. My opponent defended this pawn. One thing I was kind of afraid of in the game was the move f5 here, and I don't see the I don't see the continuation for me, honestly. Like, I mean, I can take. I need to use this pawn somehow, probably. Yeah, but like, this is an issue maybe. If I do something, if I just take or something, and not sack my pawn. And there was this variation I was looking at, which was a queen sack with f6, and I don't think it works, because king f7 was the point. And I have a lot of moves, but the issue isn't, so if I and the queen is actually kind of bad here. It doesn't really do all that anything you want. And if I can play f7, I win. So what I was looking at was knight f3, threatening g5, knight g5, which I think is winning, but just h6. And I don't think there's anything here. Maybe knight. No, that just. I was trying to sack a piece like that, but that's probably also not good enough. Yeah, I think this is bad. Yeah, unfortunate. But f5, honestly, I don't see what I'm supposed to do here. An option is queen h6 here, which like I'm not sure. Well, I can still do this plan, and this also defends against rook h4. But this, after this, rook h4 is just. Oh no, wait, that's it also blocks. So this is actually a good threat. And this is nothing, I don't think. Well, my throat is really screwed. Maybe that's better. But you can't take, yeah, you can't take on g7 though. So my opponent played queen e7 here. So after f5, the move I was actually looking at was rook e7. But I believe after just taking, we've equalized and like everything is stuck here. Oh, actually, we haven't equalized, but like this. I don't know. Everything is still stuck, and like I think I'm winning this pawn. Maybe not like that. But yeah, queen e7. I think that makes it easier for me. Kind of, but it's not that big of a deal. Because like the queen can't take this, which is the point, because this is just checkmate. And a lot of things, like if this pawn survives, a lot of things are actually threatening checkmate, especially with f7. So I basically have a free move to do whatever I want. And that free move I decided to use on the move knight to b5, which wins this pawn. I think. I mean, you can defend it, but maybe then I just take here. Well, let's see. My opponent didn't defend it, but let's take a look what happens here. Maybe it's e5. No, that's bad. Maybe just take. Also this hangs, but that's not a big of a deal. But maybe now you have bishop f5 and you don't actually need to take technically. Oh, g4. And there's no check because the rook is stuck on d8. Oh no, wait, the point was that, like, what do you do here? The point was that black doesn't really have a move. You can play like this and that, and you can take the pawn, of course. But where's your plan? Because like this is still a threat, and my knight is actually pretty good here, attacking here. Actually, maybe you can't even play this, because then I take here, and after that I take it there. Take there. That's cool. So I don't see the black move other than taking this pawn, which is, of course, I mean, you should. And then like play continues. But yeah, my opponent didn't actually defend. My opponent took here. And now finally, after knight takes d6, attacking here a third time, and rook f8 defending, the only way to defend as well, I think, because, oh, that's not the move, that's not the key I wanted to press. after bishop e6. What was the point? Oh, I just take the rook. That was the point, of course. And after rook takes f8, I finally equalized. Yeah. And I think I should definitely be better in this position, because I have pressure on f7. I'm the one putting pressure and black is defending, and I mean this could be annoying as well. Also, knight versus bishop is interesting. This bishop right now is really bad, and my knight is pretty amazing. So I think, I mean, this bishop isn't terrible, and it just needs to develop. Yeah. Oh, I just remembered something. Instead of queen e7, I was thinking rook e7, because then this doesn't work. But I just take with the pawn. What's the point? Yeah, he takes d5. And here my opponent plays bishop d7, and I can't take, because of this discovered attack. But that's fine. I just, well, the next two moves, no matter what my opponent does, I would play the next two moves here. I just want to get my knight out of there and into another good square. So I played queen d4, check. And on any move I play the move knight e4, and maybe go to f6 if the opponent doesn't play f6 here. And if the opponent does play f6, then it's pinned and I'm attacking it for a third time. And then this has this threat and d6 maybe. So my opponent does play f6 and I play knight e4. Third attack, pressure here. This is also kind of a thing, but not in this position, because then my knight hangs again. But there are variations where after I move my knight, I can just take this pawn. My opponent doesn't give me the chance though. My opponent plays queen e5 here, which allows me to basically turn it into a knight versus bishop endgame. With well, I have a pretty far pawn and I have a bit more time as well. But maybe this pawn is weak, and of course bishop is strong, so yeah. After a long calculation, I actually accepted. Take. The second exchange might not be accurate, but I think it's probably fine. The other option is rook c1, but then my king is cut off. Like, I can get to c7, and maybe even you're forced to do this, after which this is an improvement to the game, I think. Because I get, like... no, it's actually not. Because the king is one square closer. But yeah, king takes. King f2. My king moves up. Also, let's take a moment here. Think about what you would assume the result of this match would be. Of this game. Not the match. The match we lost. The game, it's about this game right now. Just think about what you think the outcome is. Because it seems very equal, but there's knight versus bishop. My pawn is a bit weak. My king is slightly faster. Yeah, just think about it. And I'll take another drink again and try to make sure that my voice isn't screwed up for the rest of this analysis. Okay. Yeah. My opponent tries to well, One thing I realized, and my opponent actually didn't somehow, but still made this plan, was look at where the king can go. Can't go here, 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 or here, because of this knight. So my opponent, I think correctly, tries to get rid of my knight with the bishop. There is also like this type of thing, but you can also play king e7 here. But maybe then I play d6. There are plenty of variations where I can use this knight to trade this pawn for either this or this pawn, which is very interesting actually, because this pawn can be pretty weak and I'd be up a pawn in an endgame maybe. But yeah, that is a thing that can happen. But my opponent plays bishop f5, threatening to take. And I saw that if I just defend, well, okay, this one is pretty obvious. If my opponent takes and I take back, sorry, I basically gave it away. If they take and I take back, this pawn is undefensible and I just win. Pawn endgames up a pawn like this, they're just winning because you can get the king stuck here and then run to a set of pawns, whatever set of pawns you want. And then you play 2 versus 0 because you win both of the pawns. Run the 2 pawns and then go to the other side, and the king is stuck defending the 2 pawns. So actually let's look at that. It didn't happen, but let's look at that. Take, king here, because you, and let's say h6 here. This is very winning. Just check, let's say here, to prevent king f6. And this, let's just say it doesn't really matter. And now the king is completely stuck, and what you can do, for example, here is do this, and you can't move out because then I promote, of course. You can try this, but oh, maybe you can actually hold this. Wait, maybe I shouldn't go to these pawns, maybe I should go to the other pawns. So here you can't move that, but like I can do this, and you can't defend this. And I mean, even if you can get to these pawns here, let's just say I don't push them through properly and you're stuck now, you can do this. The king is completely stuck, you can't ever take, and I just do this. This takes a while, but like there's nothing you can do about this, and I just win because of the other pawns. So this is something that, well, you need to see that this exchange right here is winning because I win the pawn. So yeah, that's what happened. What I did, I played king e3. My opponent didn't take. My opponent played king e7. And now, if they take, it might be fine. It might be a draw, maybe not. But like, my opponent is also threatening to just not take and like play on and do like this. Oh, also the king can't go there, so go like around this, and I also can't attack this pawn because the bishop attacks and the pawn attacks that, so it's hard for me to attack this pawn. Maybe this is just a draw, but like maybe black is actually pushing this if I allow them. But I saw this really nice trick. I played the move h3. So the points, there are 3 points actually. I put up 4 fingers, but it's actually only 3 points. Well, first off, that I believe if I play g4 and they take, that's still winning. So this is a threat. If I play g4 and they move out, then I can move my knights, let's say here, and play king e4, and there's nothing you can do about that. Maybe you have got h5, but and then like kick out the king and win the pawn was the point. So that's actually a threat, sort of. If you, let's say, do this, maybe you can take. I believe if I do this and they take, can I take, then it's the draw, I think. Because maybe not. But if they don't... But my point was after knight c3, I'm going to kick out the bishop and play king e4. And the only way to defend that, let's say this, g4, is to play here, and then the bishop gets trapped. There's no square for the bishop. I'll just point them all out. Oh, king. Oh. And so the bishop is trapped here. And if you go, let's say here, then here, and I mean maybe you can still do, maybe you can still play this, but no, not king c5. The king is completely stuck. As I was planning to do, like, move my knight here, but maybe I can move my knight like that, and that could be winning. I'm not completely sure how I'd play it, but this is kind of the point. I'm trying to do like a route finder, so like going here maybe through here. Maybe I'd do this. Yeah, plenty of options. And also you have to see from here, which was most of my calculation, that this is winning for white. Or actually I assumed that this was winning. This happened in the game, but let's look at it later. I believe the best move in this position is h5, after which I believe I just play h4, and then I basically get, well, I always win every position that my opponent takes in, because I always have an extra tempo. This might just be a draw, but I think if anyone has an advantage here, it's white. And maybe you can go, maybe the bishop can go do something, but maybe my knight gets in. I don't know. This seemed interesting to play. But yeah, bishop takes e4 happened, and this is winning, I assumed, and well, let's see if I assumed correctly, after the move h4. So let's look at this position first. This is a standard position where both kings are completely stuck. You can't, the only way for this king to defend the pawn is to or to stay here or to go here. Not there, you can't go there. You can go, maybe you can go here, but you can't go here because of this pawn. And similarly for the other side, both of the kings, if they move, so the king can in theory go here, but any of these moves you lose the pawn and you lose the game. For black as well. So after h4, the black king can go all of these 4 squares, but I just take and I win the game. So black, both of the kings are stuck, both of the pawns are stuck. Nobody can move. The first person to move loses. So we're in a Zugzwang position. Here, This, well, we can basically make it equal on both sides. But here, this is definitely disconnected somehow. My opponent can so here the plan is any move the opponent makes with these two pawns, I just mirror, I just copy, and my opponent can't play this move because I take, and then this just gives me two tempos as well. My opponent can play this, after which I play g4, and my opponent can play h5, after which I play g3, and then they're stuck. And then my opponent is it's my opponent's move, I mirror here on this side, and then I win. And after h6, g4, which I believe happened, no, not yet, I just first I mirrored here, then h6, g4, I mirrored here, and again, and my opponent resigned here, because after h5 I play g5, and after g5 I play h5. And then, in both those game positions, I mean, you can try to sack the pawn, it doesn't help. The king has to move, and then let's say here, and I take in both positions. So this is a win for white, and I won this game. Might not have looked like that here, especially here, but I actually won this game. So let's take a look at how I did. Because, well, definitely the opening went poorly, but this is just opening. Yeah, take d6. Okay, bishop e3 already is apparently bad. Apparently this is just not the way to play it. Apparently I should just play knight f3 and e5 very quickly and hope that's good enough. I didn't know that, but I know now. Castle, knight g4. Weird. Alright, yeah, knight d7 makes a lot more sense. Knight c6 also makes sense. Knight d4 I assumed was not great. And castling is also really bad here. Yeah. Yeah, -2. Makes sense. And here, knight g4, I just play bishop g1. I want to look at this for a bit. Yeah, there was nothing. There was no knight move here. So knight d4. Bishop d7, yeah. Castle, rook c8. Yeah, here I just have to play something, right? Can you take on e4? Really? Wait. I assumed that this wasn't possible because that... Wait, do you just end up with a pawn here? Is that the point? Yeah. Well, 2 pawns even. Yeah, fair. You just win a pawn here and like this. Unfortunate. Good thing that my opponent didn't play that. Yeah, king h1. I looked at it, king h1. But I wanted to prevent knight c4 and I thought that the counterplay on b7 was worth it. But yeah, this is bad for me. You have to take. Knight d5 is apparently terrible. Oh, you take first is the point. Take on c1. And then, I mean, I can get to the 7th rank, but that doesn't really help me then. Yeah, this is... Apparently you still have that chance. I assumed that this was actually fine for me. Take. Okay, now it's fine again. Apparently. Take, queen f4. Wait, queen takes? Really? Okay, would have played queen f4 regardless. Queen f4. Ah, queen d7 or f6. But queen d7 really is the move here. To prevent knight b5 also. So I was looking at this position and just playing this, and queen f6 and king back, and now knight b5, yeah. Knight d4. What if I... Oh, the rook hangs, so you can't do this. Okay, yeah. Makes sense. Queen e7, now knight b5, yeah, good that I spotted that. D takes e4, you can do that. Maybe you can. I looked at it, but I assumed that this was good for me. Knight d, rook d5, that's really difficult to spot. Because you have to go here, is the point. And here. That's... I don't think this is reasonable to find. And this is pretty much a draw. You do have to play it, but come on. Yep. Yeah, this is a draw. But now now I'm better again. A bit. Take, equal. Yeah, I'm just putting pressure, so I'm just a bit better here. h3, that's cool. But like, I thought that this was nice as well, yeah. Apparently queen e5 is fine. Makes sense that this is a draw. Knight f6 I saw, but I mean, you just win my d-pawn then. And of course, you can always do that. d6 as well, and then knight c5 generally wins a pawn. Knight b5, or knight c5, knight g5, or trades pawns. Yeah, h5 I assumed, and then the game continues. But I thought that any other move was better for me, or at least equal. And this is winning, yeah. My opponent didn't see that, so my opponent asked if I saw that in this position, that, or in this position, that if they take, that I'd win, and I did. But my opponent didn't see that. Yeah, you have to find h4, right? Oh, maybe not. Maybe you can still play something else. Yeah, it doesn't matter. a4 also. Nice, yeah, same trick. But I can also just mirror. Yeah, you have to find a4, otherwise you lose. Nice. Yeah. And here my opponent resigned. Yeah. Played a terrible game, got back, just barely eked out a win. Yeah. Maybe I should stop playing this, honestly. Maybe I should just learn gambits as black and play like normal games as white. Yeah, I guess. Next match is in 10 days, and I'm not sure when I'll make that video, that analysis. We'll see it. We'll see. See you there.